Hi there, it is Hayley Bohan, your host of the Marketing on Purpose show. And sitting beside me is the lovely Catherine Doucette. Yay! I'm super pumped to have Catherine here because Catherine and I have been working together for, oh my gosh, almost a year, you think? Almost a year now.
Weird.
Holy cow.
Time flies.
Yeah, it has been almost a year. Yeah. And we've gotten to know each other quite well. And I've gotten to know her business quite well. And it's awesome. And so we're going to share her business with you today and also share her journey through the brand building that we did together and kind of some of the things that came out of that in terms of learnings, things that we want to share with you so that even if you don't do the Strategic Foundation Bootcamp, it can help you along your entrepreneurial journey and to elevate your marketing. So we're going to get started. So I'm just going to show here. This is Catherine's company. And why don't you kind of share with everybody what your company is all about?
Okay. The short version is I'm trying to eradicate death by PowerPoint. But the long version is, well, what we do is we go in and we develop, we customize training based on whatever the organization needs. So communications, leadership, conflict, even email messaging. I've seen people, no rules on that. So understanding different styles, how to work with different styles, things like that. So we go into the company and we see what the target learners, what the management needs for training. And then we talk to the managers and say, what do you think you need for training? And we compile that together, create the tailored training. And one of the best parts that organizations like is that we evaluate things. So it's not just bums in seats. We're not just going, ooh, 10 people attended. Yeah. We're measuring their learning. We're measuring what's called transfer, which is the educational geek and me's way of saying, making sure you take these new skills and you actually use them on the job so that the organization's investment is worth it. So I love what I do. I'm a geek. I could talk about it all day. So. You know,
and I love that you're a geek. It makes me happy because I'm also a geek. I'm a marketing geek. So really, Catherine's company is focused on helping companies to build leaders, to retain employees, to make their training fun and worthwhile.
Oh yeah,
right.
I've seen studies anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 times an employee's salary is if you lose a leader, a manager or senior employee, that's actually the cost to the company because it takes a while for somebody to get up to speed and understand the organization and understand your clients. So it's really important that you invest in your employees and you give them the training that they need to be successful and to deal with whatever situations are coming, and that'll help you retain. It is actually a cost savings in the end.
Absolutely. And I sometimes think about like my experience in corporate, because I was in corporate for years before starting my own business. And I think about some of the training and what it takes to get staff to training, because it's not just picking the right trainer and stuff like that. They're actually off the job when they're in training. So if you're wasting their time, what a waste and cost your company to have some of your best people off the job for however long the training is.
And that's what I keep hearing from companies is that, you know, there's a fee for me and for me developing the training and evaluating, but the largest cost is the staff time spent in training. And so people often when they choose my company, what happens is that it's because they've called other places and they go, this is what we offer. But this is the box and I hope you fit into it. Whereas I come in and say, what is it you need? Because training time is precious. So how can we make the best use of that time? And when I talk about eradicating death by PowerPoint, what I mean is that the training that I design is all hands-on. So it doesn't matter, I mean, years ago, not anymore, but years ago when I did software training, you're still up and moving every 20 to 30 minutes. You're working together, you're working alone. You're working as a group, you're working in class. And so when I do training, people are up and moving and having fun and, you know, and whatever I can do to make it creative, people really appreciate it. And at the same side, it's all about making the situations practical. So I'll work with the company and say, what are some of the scenarios that happened in your company that we want them to know how to work with and things like that. So that's kind of See, I told you I could talk.
That's what it's about. Okay, but today we are going to talk about your experience with the Strategic Foundation Bootcamp. And I remember when we first met. So Mark Breen, thank you for introducing us. Mark Breen referred Catherine to me. He's with the Economic Development of Greater St. John. So thank you for that. But we spoke, and I'll tell you, I was intimidated when you said you wanted to work with me, because you are one of the smartest people that I've met. Like, really, guys, imagine training people on everything from communications to leadership, and then all of these little nuances that are industry-wide. And to be able to train somebody, you have to get it, you have to understand it. And so this woman is like a wealth of knowledge. So I was a little bit nervous, to say the least. But I'm so glad that you took the chance. So what was it? Because you had some marketing chops anyways, right? So what was it that made you kind of say, you know what, I'm going to work with Hayley, even though I already know a lot of this marketing stuff?
Well, going back to my life as a geek, I keep going back to school. So my first degree is in public relations. So I've done other people's branding. I worked in communications and internal employee communications and in branding and in creating all that for other people. But what happened is that my head kind of starts to spin when I'm trying to figure out mine. And so after we met, there's a whole bunch of people out there who say, oh, I do marketing. And then when you take a look at, okay, so tell me your education, tell me your experience, there wasn't a lot to back it up. And I'm like, well, I can do that. Like, I don't want to hire a consultant and then edit their stuff, because that's happened before.
Yeah.
Years ago when I first started. So when I talked to you, and you could tell you knew what you were talking about, and then I looked at your background and I went, ooh, oh, good.
Oh, she's actually been a marketer. She's actually done brand marketing.
Well, it's so funny, because in leadership training, that's what I do, is I push people, whether I'm doing it in a classroom or online or one-on-one, pushing people to take the next step. And you were this annoying person pushing me to do some things that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
That worked out really well. So
yeah, that's one of the benefits of, I actually just hired a coach myself, Nikki. He's another host, and he's awesome. And the reason I hired him is because even though I know a lot and I know what I should do, I'm not necessarily doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And there's some things that I don't like to do that are out of my comfort zone, that, having somebody else say, you got to do this and push you towards it, it makes a difference. So hiring a coach, I highly recommend, whether it's me or someone else, but it's good to have a posse.
Oh, it's amazing. I've hired different coaches for different things. So just before I started with you, I was working with somebody else, because I was working on my vision of, so what do I want? Like, where do I want to go from here? What's the kind of work that I want to do? And kind of refocusing again.
Yeah.
And then it was very interesting, because as that was wrapping up, that's when Mark had mentioned you. And so it kind of all rolled together. So that was really cool. And so she was finished kicking my butt. So now it was your turn.
So let's talk about your brand. Mm-hmm. So before you started with the Strategic Foundation Bootcamp, how are you feeling about your brand? Or were you feeling anything?
I knew it could be better, and it was slightly off, but I didn't know how to fix it. And it's so funny, because I was so frustrated and mad at myself, because I've done this in the past for other people.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, I'm stuck in my own head. And so I thought, I need help with this. And if I'm going to go where I want to go and do the work that I want to do and continue to do that, then I need a butt kicker.
Yes. Yeah. I'm a good butt kicker. I need my butt kicked a lot too, though. Okay. So once you finish the boot camp, you have a gorgeous brand. So what's different for you about your brand from when you started the boot camp to kind of now you're in the mode of trying to push it out to your ideal client?
Well, there's a couple things, and part of it's because my degree was a while ago. We were more old school and corporate. My website, beautiful as it is, Mark Pridham did an awesome job. My last website, the wording that I'd written was so formal and corporate, because that's what we did. I'm old, decades ago.
I'm older today.
We'll talk about that. And So looking back, things were much more formal,
Yeah.
back in the day when, I'm old, you wore skirts to interviews and,
Yeah.
all those things. And you would never, color your hair or do anything wild and exciting like that. So my website was still stuck there. Now my blog was me.
Yes.
My blog was me with my attitude and sense of humor and all those things. But the website looked like it belonged to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so there was that. And my website, when I wrote it, spoke to the people in the training. But they're not my target market. My target market is the people who hire me to come in and do the training.
Right.
And so when you said that to me, I was like, oh, I just kind of went, I can't believe I didn't see that. But I needed somebody else to take another look at what I was doing. And so the first thing I did after we started redefining the brand and getting things aligned is that I went back and rewrote my website and had Mark do a new one. And the new website is much more focused on what people need to understand, why they should hire my company, why they need me. And I actually had a client who was in there in between, and I just met him and in training, and he'd seen the first website. Yeah. And I said, oh gosh, like the new one's coming on Monday. And he went to go look at the new one. And he actually said to me, you know what? The new one is exactly the information that I need to explain to my directors why we're making this investment. And I went, thank you, Hayley.
Yeah.
So so that was a big shift. So those two things, being more me and showing my personality, and also shifting my focus on the target market instead of the participants, but the people who are hiring me. So
and I think that's a common thing in B2B, right? Business to business. Because a lot of the times you have a solution that somebody within the organization is going to use, but there is those decision makers. So you really have to look at who you want to be your ideal client, and we do that in the boot camp and figure out like who is the ideal client, why they're the ideal client, and we figure out so much about them, and we do the interviews to figure out why what you're offering is important to them. So,
and something I want to point out as something useful for my old branding life is reading level and use of language. So when I first started my company, one of the mistakes that I made years ago is I talked about instructional design. Well, unless you have a background in training or you're in human resources that specializes in training development, you don't know what that is, or training needs assessment. So instead, I started talking about designing training and looking at the gaps in skills. And so I was using words that other people don't know. And what happens is that people don't ask questions all the time. They don't want to look stupid. So they're just smiling and nodding. Yeah. And one of the things that kind of pushed me to go looking for someone like you, Hayley, is that I realized in many circles I was well known, but not known for exactly what I do. And I went, oops.
Yeah, one of the best questions that we ask the ideal customers is describe Catherine Doucette, right? Describe Catherine's company. And that tells you pretty much what your brand is at that point, right? Because the perception of your ideal clients, that's really what your brand is.
Yeah.
So to understand that at the beginning of the process, and then, if you go and ask, even like 2 months from now, when you've had some time to lay the groundwork, it's going to be probably a little bit different, which is good.
And it reminds me every time, like whether I'm writing a post on LinkedIn or I'm writing a proposal or whether I'm editing something on the website, it always reminds me to go, who are you talking to? Are you talking to that one person who you described as your ideal client, or are you switching back into corporate mode? And it's really that shift where I go, oh, that's awfully stiff, and that's not me. Like I'm
infusing. That was a huge one for you, is infusing your personality into the brand, right? Because your personality is reflected in the way you train.
Yeah.
And if they don't like your personality, they're not going to like your training as much, right? But who's not going to like your personality? But out of the box and, just really down to earth and real, right?
Yeah, and I think it was kind of scary to do that because I always wondered where the line was.
Yeah.
But then you kept saying, go back to your blogs. And I'm like, when I blog, I'm just like, this is what's going on today. And this is the situation we came across. or this is the lesson that I learned today, or this is what I was reminded of. And those are the things that people talk about having the greatest impact. And so what I've been doing is taking that style of being who I am from the blogs and putting them on social media. Because in the past, when people read the blogs, when I would show up to meet with a potential client, they'd say, it was like they already knew me because they had read this stuff. And so now I need to move that to the website, to social media, so that people have a better idea of who they're talking to.
Right. So your job moving forward is to take that brand and that key succinct messaging, right? And to push it out to as many of those ideal clients as you can, right? It's that exposure that you need to get of that messaging at this point.
And I think it's hilarious because it kind of parallels, kind of taking us totally off topic because that's my job.
And my job is to bring it back.
is, when I was growing up, the role of girls was to be obedient and calm and quiet. I've never been any of those things.
Yeah.
I've never been any of those things. And so it just seems to be one more step in my life of giving myself permission to be who I am on my website, because I am who I am in my training and I'm working with people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether I'm working with, people in construction and industrial, or whether I'm working with, management consultants and things like that. This is who I am. And so it's giving yourself permission to go, so much of my brand, I have a team, but so much of my brand is me leading the way. So I just have to kind of give myself permission to go that.
Yeah, and that's the way that you build, sorry, I'm just going to center us here. There we go. That's the way that you build raving fans, right?
Yeah.
You want to attract those people who love who you are, love what you stand for, love the way you do things, and those are going to be raving fans. If they're kind of on the fence about whether they like your style, they're not going to be the ones who are going to be, even after the training, going to be shouting from the rooftops how wonderful you were.
Yeah.
So we want to repel those guys, right? And that's hard for people because there's this fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to not get that client. But you don't want those. There's enough business out there.
Being okay with no. And it's really interesting because I was, a couple years ago, Michael Logier was coaching me, and he said, it's neither right nor wrong, it's just not a match.
Yes.
So why are you putting any energy into this? Like, it's neither right nor wrong, it's just not a match. And I went, you're right. So it's okay to say no. Yeah. The other thing, when you talk about brand and my vision and how I want to make a difference in the world, is that I spent more time in the early years of the company trying to convince people, because people think training is a PowerPoint and a subject matter expert and a 6-hour lecture.
Oh my gosh.
And that's not training.
Yeah.
That's how to put people to sleep. It's a presentation. And that's why people go, oh my gosh, another PowerPoint. So I had to do a lot of educating in the beginning. And so what I'm doing now is I'm still educating people, but my clients are the people who get immediately when we talk that I have something to offer them. I'm done convincing anybody anymore. Yeah. That's okay. I can move on because there's another organization over here that wants me back or wants to do, what I'm doing. And so to just be able to kind of move on and let that go and know that the first thing that I always ask people is, when we're talking about leadership, is I often ask, like, how do you want to make a difference in the world? Like, who, whether you're working a job or a business, like, how do you want to make a difference in the world? And so my job is to help other people and organizations reach their potential. And so that's my job, and that's what drives me. And so I just need to find people who do that. And eventually they just come when you start letting everybody else go.
Yeah. And when they get that single-minded message from you.
Yes.
It's easier, right? You don't have to convince people because they get it right away versus before. I think that a lot of companies, not necessarily just you, but a lot of companies spend so much time explaining, oh, this is how I do it and this is what I do and da-da-da-da. But if you can narrow that down to a more succinct message, right? And ours was, for you, extraordinary training because ordinary won't do, which is playing on the fact that your ideal customer wants something extra. It makes them look good to have their staff doing training. And the extraordinary is all of those things that you have learned in your life, like training geek. I'm telling you, she knows like masters everything, right? Like she knows all of the tricks and communication styles and how to do everything. But it's extraordinary. It's different. It's not PowerPoint. It's different.
Yeah.
Because your employees deserve better, and that's what they care about.
And when people see who I am, then they go, oh, I want to meet her. Not, okay, we've got 4 companies. We're going to get a quote from all of them.
Yeah.
And so I have to be the face of that brand, which leads me to you being mean to me. So I've been teaching.
I feel so good.
I've been teaching for decades. Okay, it's like decades. I would rather walk into a room full of 1,000 people and do a keynote than walk into a networking thing. I'm really comfortable in front of crowds.
Yeah.
And she said, you need to do video. And I'm like video, really? I was like, no. I was thinking like, give me 8 months and maybe I'll.
Yeah, you actually said those words to me. I'm like, you've got like 8 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah, and so I started out by not going live. I started out, I'll tell you my secret. It was hilarious because I was trying to balance what Hayley wanted with
what you were willing to do.
With how much I was willing to be nauseous. And what I did is I recorded a bunch of introductory videos to some of my blog posts, and then shared the blog link, but then shared like a 30-second clip to go in the beginning, and I pre-recorded them. And so I waited till one night, I waited till everybody was gone, and then I had a series of outfits.
Oh, yeah.
It took me about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because I was so picky, which now I just kind of go, it's done.
Yeah.
And I recorded like 8 30-second videos. And it's so funny because now that would take me like a half hour or something.
Yeah.
But I kept changing clothes, and then I had them done so I could schedule them for the next little while. But I'm like, I got to do this, and I got to do it now.
Yeah.
And then after that, one day I was just in a really good frame of mind, going to get, Mark Pridham was doing pictures for my new website. And I just did a live video out of nowhere. I went, oh, look, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
And so now,
and what's it do for you now that you are able to show yourself online through social media? What is the difference for you in your business?
Last week, engagement was up by like, I don't know, it was like 11,000% or so. It was something crazy, right? Yeah. Because you pushed me to do more during the week.
Yeah.
And engagement, so people they're reading stuff, they're clicking on it, all those things. And so what's happening is I've actually had people coming to me going, when did you start? You've been doing some really cool things on social media, and I love it. It really shows your personality, and my clients are liking it. And they're sending other people to come to my page, and I've taken part of what's on Facebook, and I've kind of altered it and done some of it on LinkedIn, and I'm getting more attention there from people. And so it's, I keep going, you need to call Hayley.
Yeah, you've referred quite a few people to me, actually.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. Because usually the great thing about referrals is if the person who refers you is awesome, usually the people they refer are also awesome.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about awesome, we're going to talk about your birthday.
Okay.
So
I love my birthday, but now I'm nervous.
We have 2 things in here for Hayley on her birthday. They're not wrapped to make it easy. So,
all right, let's see. I love it. I can and I will.
You got to rock it.
Love it.
Now, there's one other thing in there from the fabulous Heartbreak Boutique that you need to see.
Yeah, and you can and you will too. Let's see, it's present time. I love presents. Ooh.
Turn them over, see what they say.
Hellraiser. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's for all the butt kicking.
Love it. Good. I'll take your butt with these on my feet.
Yeah, well, they'll give that energy for the next interview when you really want to be mean to someone.
So sweet. Thank you so much. Oh, that's so sweet. Now I'm thrown off. Okay, so we promised when we pushed this announcement out that we were going to be talking together today to talk about kind of what is that like tweak that made the difference for you. And I know that we've talked about it in the show, but I want everybody to be really clear on what that difference maker was for you. And we've talked about a lot of them, having a coach and da-da-da-da. But from a marketing perspective, what was the marketing shift that you made that changed kind of everything for you?
It was knowing who my client was and giving myself permission to be who I am.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I've read a million marketing books. I've done this for other people, and I would do something and it was kind of sort of the way there, and then we'd meet and Hayley would kind of pick at it and in a loving way and push me and push
Yeah.
to get, just for me to kind of to keep digging, for me to get the answers. And so
Yeah.
it was really like I wouldn't have gone where I went, which I think is now a kick butt website.
Yeah.
And great, social media is growing. I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't met with you as well, because I had the instructions and I knew what the instructions were. But I needed somebody to go, what about this? What about this? Does that fit? Does this fit? And it kept me from going on autopilot into corporate mode. Because the funny part is that's my training from years ago.
Yeah.
It's not.
But it's not you. It's not you, and it's not what you do in your training. And it's really not what your ideal customer was looking for.
No. I want, here's what people don't realize is that if you take a look at the research, when you train, the more fun people have, the more they learn and they retain it for longer.
Yeah.
So it benefits me and the client to go have fun. So, I mean, you do something like aliens have landed and they wanted the instructions to this, and then you've got to have them delegate that work.
Yeah.
So,
and even though people think that's cheesy, right? Yeah. I mean, who doesn't think that's cheesy? But it's still more fun than Death by PowerPoint.
after 20 minutes of sitting and listening, no matter whether you're listening to Oprah or Bill Gates, brain research says your brain starts to turn off. And so you've got to get people up and moving and going. And so that means they're working at flip charts, or they're working in pairs, or they're moving around.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have that fun action element in there. And I need to show that in my training. I know that show that in my brand to show that what I do is different, because if you hire an accountant, they have a designation and they are required to have the designation. I have a professional designation in training and development, but it's not required. So there's a whole bunch of subject matter experts out there saying I do training when they're really doing a presentation. And so what I need to do is focus on what I do differently in my brand. And that's really figure out what's in it for them and the target market. And that's where I needed to go. And I
think you kind of hit it on the head here, is even if you're doing it on your own, guys, you've got to peel back. So if you write something down and you're like, oh, this is good, it's never good enough the first time. Never. It just isn't. You have to you adapt and you adapt and you adapt until you get to the point. And I remember when we got to that headline for your website, like I was in the car, we were brainstorming, we were on like my phone in the car, because I could not shut it off, because I was like, we've got to get this succinct. We've got to get it succinct for you. Yeah. So anyways, thank you so much. That was awesome. Do you have anything else that you wanted to share about the bootcamp, your marketing, your business?
I think we pretty much covered it all, but the bootcamp was awesome. As what I've learned about most entrepreneurs, are cheap and meaningful. And it comes from those early days of business, where you don't get the check-in yet. But this investment was really worth it, and I've done a lot of other programs, and you can also call Hayley and go, "What have I done? Help me!" Yeah. So thanks for that. And moving forward, I'm looking forward to. I've got some cool contracts coming up this fall, doing some online training, some one-on-one training, and some classroom stuff. So hanging out around the province. So it's going to be a good adventure. So thanks for the butt kick, because it's all in line with my brand.
I know it is. It's awesome. So thank you guys for watching, and we're going to catch you next week on the Marketing on Purpose show. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Hayley. Bye.
Bye.